working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Maricar Velasco delivering to you the latest news in and around the ASEAN region. On today's headlines. U2 front Bono is right about human rights. Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar said on Wednesday. Flanked by more than 2,000 oarsmen rowing to a steady drumbeat, Thailand's King Maha Vajiralongkorn traveled down Bangkok's Chao Phraya River as part of a 52-barge flotilla on Thursday, marking the final event of his coronation. An Indonesian cave painting that depicts a prehistoric hunting scene could be the world's oldest figurative artwork dating back nearly 44,000 years. Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi urged UN judges on Thursday to throw out a genocide case against Myanmar, warning it risked reigniting the crisis that forced nearly 750,000 Rohingya Muslims from their homes. In her closing arguments after a 3-day hearing at the International Court of Justice, Myanmar's de facto civilian leader issued a stark warning to judges that allowing the Gambia's case against Myanmar to go ahead could undermine reconciliation.
I pray the decision you make with the wisdom and vision of justice will help us to create unity out of diversity, to develop the potential of our people, and to meet the challenges of the nation in quest of sustainable peace and ending the ongoing internal armed conflict between the Arakan Army and Myanmar's defense services is of the utmost importance for our country. But it is equally important to avoid any reignition of the 2016 to 2017 internal armed conflict in northern Rakhine. Myanmar requests the court to remove the case from its list. In the alternative, to reject the request for the indication of provisional measures submitted by the Gambia.
The small African, mainly Muslim state of Gambia has taken majority Muslim Myanmar to the UN's top court in The Hague, accusing it of breaching the 1948 UN Genocide Convention. Backed by the 57-nation Organization of Islamic Conference, Canada and the Netherlands, it is seeking emergency measures to prevent further violence against the Rohingya, pending a fuller case that could take years. Around 740,000 Rohingya fled across the border into sprawling refugee camps in Bangladesh after Myanmar launched a huge military crackdown in Rakhine State in August 2017. Suu Kyi told the court in her opening statement on Wednesday that there was no proof of genocidal intent and said the army operation was in response to attacks by Rohingya militants.
Regrettably, the Gambia has placed before the court an incomplete and misleading factual picture of the situation in Rakhine State in Myanmar. Yet, it is of the utmost importance that the court assess the situation obtaining on the ground in Rakhine dispassionately and accurately. It cannot be ruled out that disproportionate force was used by members of the defense services, in some cases in disregard of international humanitarian law, or that they did not distinguish clearly enough between ARSA fighters and civilians. There may also have been failures to prevent civilians from looting or destroying property after fighting or in abandoned villages. But these are determinations to be made in the due course of the criminal justice process, not by any individual in the Myanmar government. Can there be genocidal intent on the part of a state that actively investigates, prosecutes, and punishes soldiers and officers who are accused of wrongdoing? Although the focus here is on members of the military, I can assure you that appropriate action will also be taken against civilian offenders in line with due process. There will be no tolerance of human rights violations in the Rakhine or elsewhere in Myanmar. Original ulcer attacks.
Speaking outside the International Court of Justice in The Hague, Gambia's Justice Minister Abubakar Tambadou said that there was a compelling evidence of genocide and genocidal intent by Myanmar against Rohingya Muslims.
The special advisor to the Secretary General has... So there is compelling evidence of genocide and genocidal intent, certainly, as far as we are concerned. Well, that's for another day, but for now we're here to make sure that the court orders Myanmar to stop all these activities that would perpetuate the violence and the genocide that is ongoing, and to preserve evidence. Well, if we weren't confident, we wouldn't have come here. We have every confidence in the ability of this court to do what is right, to do justice, and that confidence hasn't moved.
U2 frontman Bono is right about human rights, Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar said on Wednesday. On Tuesday, Bono, a member of Amnesty International, was asked to comment on the human rights situation in the Philippines.
And I would just say you can't compromise on human rights, and that's my soft message to the president.
Once again,
Andanar agreed with Bono's soft message addressed to President Rodrigo Duterte, saying you can't compromise on human rights. Let's listen in.
CEO Keller Rinaldo.
Amnesty International for the longest time. He has his beliefs, and we actually agree with the fact that human rights should really be upheld, and that's a policy of the government, that we should protect every person in this country, because human rights is sacred. Now, as Keller mentioned, the CEO of Zipline, human rights encompasses so many things, and this includes health. So you will notice that the president has been an advocate of the universal health care. In fact, he signed the universal health care law. Just recently, and it was announced also here in the press briefing room, that poverty incidence has dropped from 23% to 16%, thereby emancipating almost 6 million Filipinos from poverty. And it's also part of human rights, the right to have economic freedom. The president also signed the freedom of information, so the right to information. The president also signed AO number 1, the Presidential Task Force on Media Security. The director, Yusek Aiko, is here. And that is very important, because there is freedom of the press, and it's the right of every member of the press to be secure. And we are looking forward to the promulgation this coming December 19 of the Ampatuan or Maguindanao massacre.
U2 held their first concert in the country at the Philippine Arena on Wednesday, December 11. Anti-kidnapping operatives of the Philippine National Police have arrested 2 Chinese nationals for abducting a compatriot who fell victim to a loan shark syndicate. Lieutenant Colonel Villaflor Banawagan, Luzon Field Unit Commander of Anti-Kidnapping Group, on Thursday identified the suspects as Juan Renhong and Juan Liang, who were members of a loan shark syndicate. Citing the affidavit of the victim named Wang Hong, Banawagan said the victim lost in a gambling spree on December 4 and got a loan worth 1 million pesos with 15% interest. While the victim checked in at a hotel in Parañaque City on December 8, the kidnappers warned that he would be killed if he could not pay his loan. The victim, who was detained, managed to report the incident to his friend, who later reported to the police, which led to his rescue and the arrest of the suspects on Tuesday night. The suspects are facing kidnapping for ransom with serious illegal detention after undergoing inquest proceedings before the Department of Justice on Wednesday.
Nung nandun siya sa kulungan, nasa room, yung mga Chinese suspects ay instructed him to ask money from his family or friends for them to pay them, and if he cannot pay them, they threatened to kill him and throw him at a cemetery. We are really concentrating na sana ay kung hindi natin totally ma-stop, ma-prevent natin yung ibang mga insidente na ganyan.
Flanked by more than 2,000 oarsmen rowing to a steady drumbeat, Thailand's King Maha Vajiralongkorn traveled down Bangkok's Kayo Phraya River as part of a 52-barge flotilla on Thursday, marking the final event of his coronation. The flotilla comes 7 months after the monarch was crowned in an elaborate 3-day affair that involved sacred bathing rituals and a grand procession where he was carried on a palanquin around Bangkok's historic old quarter to greet the public. Thousands of well-wishers dressed in royal yellow sat along the riverbanks, cheering on the king, who wore a feather-adorned hat, and Queen Sufida, his fourth wife, as they passed on a gilded Sufanahong or golden swan barge. Seated next to them was Prince Dipangkorn Rasmijoti, the king's 14-year-old son from his third marriage, while his 2 daughters from previous marriages were on a separate barge decorated with a pink exterior and Naga head figurines. The river procession allows Thais a rare chance to see the royal family in the flesh, a prospect that drew elderly supporters. Public transport fares on Bangkok's SkyTrain and underground subway were waived for the day, and onlookers were served complimentary meals while they waited. The traditional event, which also drew foreign dignitaries and diplomats, originated from the river journeys of ancient Thai kings as they lead their battle flotillas into war. Vajiralongkorn ascended the throne after the 2016 death of his father, Bhumibol Adulyadej, who remains widely adored in Thailand and was revered as the country's moral authority.
Greetings to all viewers from Victoria, Canada.
Victoria is the capital of British Columbia and is one of the top 10 gardens in the world, known as Butchart Gardens. Victoria is also known as a city of gardens, boasting nearly 1,500 hanging baskets around the city during the summer.
We are here in front of the Parliament building, which is the seat of the Legislative Assembly of the province. There are 3,560 bulbs lighting up the building, creating this beautiful display.
For Eagle News International, I am Jeanette Guazo.
And I am Neil Duazo from the Canada Bureau.
We are one with 25.
Welcome back. Thailand's Bangkok Bank said Thursday it would buy a majority stake worth $2.7 billion in Standard Chartered Indonesian lender bank Permata, signaling the massive potential of Southeast Asia's most populous country. The acquisition comes as major Japanese and East Asian banks are scrambling to integrate Indonesian lenders into their business. Permata Bank, whose major shareholders were Standard Chartered and Indonesian conglomerate PT Astra, is Indonesia's 12th biggest bank and has more than 3 million customers. Bangkok Bank said Thursday it had entered a conditional share purchase agreement to acquire an 89.12% stake in Permata worth $2.7 billion. The transaction is expected to close within 2020, after which it plans to acquire the remaining 10.88%. This would bring the total value to $2.9 billion for 100%, according to Chansak Phuangphu, Executive Director at Bangkok Bank. As Thailand's economy slows to single-digit growth in the next few years, the Thai lender hopes Permata will boost its opportunities. It is a win-win solution for both parties, Chansak said during a press conference announcing the landmark transaction. Another Bangkok Bank Executive Director, Charamporn Jotikashtira said Indonesia was a key focus in their plan for growth because of its favorable demographics. One of the region's largest commercial banks, Bangkok Bank, had been competing with Japan's Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group for the majority stake in Permata, according to Bloomberg. On Thursday, Permata shares were up more than 4% in Jakarta. Meanwhile, Bangkok Bank shares fell more than 4.4% and were trading at 161.50 baht by the end of the day. Chansak downplayed the drop as the current sentiment of the market, saying it was too early to tell if there was a real negative impact. While Indonesia is the world's fourth most populous nation, many Indonesians remain outside the traditional banking system, making it a race for lenders to reach consumers in Southeast Asia's largest economy. Battling drought, debt, and ailments blamed on pesticides, rice farmers in northern Thailand have turned to eco-friendly growing methods despite powerful agribusiness interests in a country that is one of the top exporters of the grain in the world. Walking through a sea of green waist-high stalks, farmer Sunan Somjak said his fields were exhausted by chemicals, his family regularly felt ill, and his profits were too low to make ends meet. But that changed when he joined a pilot agricultural project for the SRI method, which aims to boost yields while shunning pesticides and using less water. Chemicals can destroy everything, according to the 58-year-old, adding that the harvest in his village in Chiang Mai province has jumped 40% since employing the new method. There have been health benefits too. It works by planting crops wider apart, thus drawing in more nutrients and light and limiting the amount of water that gets into fields, which helps microorganisms flourish to act as natural fertilizers. In a plus for debt-laden farmers, it also uses fewer seeds, and they are encouraged to use plants and ginger roots that naturally deter insects rather than chemical alternatives, meaning fewer expenses. Traditional Thai rice farmers earn around 3,000 baht a month or $100, but Sunan was able to increase his income by 20% after adopting the SRI method. Four UN agencies said on Wednesday that 3 million undernourished people a month across the Asia-Pacific region must be lifted out of hunger until the end of 2030 if the Sustainable Development Goals are to be reached. The Food and Agriculture Organization, UN Children's Fund, World Food Program, and World Health Organization are calling for urgent action to put nutrition at the heart of social protection programs throughout the region. A new joint report highlighted that an estimated 77 million children under 5 were stunted last year and 32.5 million suffered from wasting. The latest figures make for grim reading on top of rising numbers of children and adults who are overweight or obese across the region. While social protection can potentially help to eradicate hunger and malnutrition, the report notes the need for more research into how they are impacting the poor, especially women and children, people with disabilities, and indigenous people. The UN agencies hope these findings will inform dialogues in member countries to improve food security and nutrition across Asia and the Pacific.
Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. Species that you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back. An Indonesian cave painting that depicts a prehistoric hunting scene could be the world's oldest figurative artwork dating back nearly 44,000 years, a discovery that points to an advanced artistic culture according to new research. Spotted 2 years ago on the island of Sulawesi, the 4.5-meter, 13-foot wide painting features wild animals being chased by half-human hunters wielding what appears to be spears and ropes, according to the study published in the journal Nature on Wednesday. Using dating technology, the team at Australia's Griffith University said it had confirmed that the limestone cave painting dated back at least 43,900 years during the Upper Paleolithic period. Researchers said the hunting scene to their knowledge, currently the oldest pictorial record of storytelling and the earliest figurative artwork in the world. The discovery comes after a painting of an animal in a cave on the Indonesian island of Borneo was earlier determined to have been at least 40,000 years old, while in 2014 researchers dated figurative art on Sulawesi to 35 years ago. Scientists said Wednesday they have come up with an environmentally friendly method that uses artificial sunlight to transform plastic into power-generating chemicals as countries worldwide battle to reduce waste. Researchers in Singapore say they have converted plastic into formic acid, which can be used in power plants to generate electricity.
We are able to turn plastics, which are of course polluting the oceans, into useful chemicals, and we do it using sunlight. So we're hoping to turn this into a fully renewable process that's carbon neutral. One of the challenges is that right now our catalyst is dissolved together with the plastic as well as the solvent. So the issue is that then in order for us to recover the catalyst, we actually have to put in energy to remove the solvent. So we want to actually develop a system that you can just separate from the products and the starting materials without actually putting more energy into it.
And that is latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Maricar Velasco and I'm one with 25.